Well, another another episode of Dancing with Change and Facility Management, and I'm very pleased to have as a speaker again, Jerry DiCola, who has been involved in this business for some time, and I'm absolutely excited to have a very interesting conversation with Jerry. So tell the audience a bit about yourself, Jerry.
Well, Kathleen, thank you very much for inviting me back. It's nice. It's nice to know I have a friend out there. So that's always great. Um, my name is Jerry DiCola, and I'm the founder and consultant and trainer and secretary and everything else for Inspired Consultant Services. My consulting services has been around for about 4 years now. But prior to that, I, I have 20 years, approximately 20 years of experience in facility management. Worked in different industries, pharmaceutical, financial, legal, technology, outsourcing. So I've been around in the various industries for the last 20 years. In addition, I have about 18 years experience of training certification classes. So I've been teaching the CFM, the FMP, the SFP, the essentials long ago. So I've been teaching for a long time for IFMA, and I'm ballparking somewhere around 500 people who I've encountered as participants over the last 18 years. Might be a little high, might be a little, but what that allows me to do is as a consultant, I'm not only bringing my experiences to the table. I've heard for years these stories of people who have been proficient in facility management. I don't claim to be the expert in everything, but I do know how to ask the right questions. So from that standpoint, I can deliver a lot to my clients. As you can tell from my gray hair, I've been around a while, even longer than 12 or 20 years. So in addition, I've had other careers in human resources. I was a small business owner. I was in sales. So um, while there's a lot of people who've been in the industry, facility management for 20, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, I bring in several different types of backgrounds to my experiences when I'm working with clients and participants in classes, because I'm pulling from the 40 years of experience behind me. So that allows me to bring in a lot of great stories, a lot of opportunities where I failed and I learned from my lessons, and now I can share those lessons with people to say, don't do this, or you might want to consider this. So this is, so I bring a little bit of something a little different to the table as a consultant, as a contractor, and as a consultant.
Wow, that's great. I like the fact that your experience has been so well-rounded and in
Mhm.
so many different areas because that really does speak to what facility management is. We frequently, I mean, if and you teach it. So taking a look at all of the qualifications, facility managers are actually generalists. They
They
need
are,
to know so much about everything, and they can and are
right.
experts in a couple of areas, but it's connecting the dots around all of these things. And so your
Yeah,
resume speaks volumes to that for sure.
thank you.
So
Yeah, and because collaboration was a key part of my success in the corporate environment. And because of the others' backgrounds, I could relate to the other departments, and I wasn't just bringing facility management solutions to the table, and I understood some of the challenges that they had because I lived them either in facility management life or in my prior life. So it makes a much more comfortable environment to talk to people.
yes, well, actually, that's perfect because, as
Mhm.
you have suggested, uh, you really do need a common sense approach to
Yes.
leadership in this
Mhm.
business. And as you've also suggested, there is a need for facility managers to become more trusted partners with the businesses, with the C-suite. So I would like to hear from you some ideas of how you make that happen.
True. Well, senior management is looking for uh, answers. They're looking for solutions. They're not looking for the details. They're not looking for, and they're looking to grow without risk. And that's one of the areas that FMs can shine, because from a risk management standpoint, and I don't mean risk from a standpoint of emergency preparedness or business continuity, because that's a shared risk that all organizations have. But risk from a standpoint of being the eyes and ears of senior management, understanding what their mission is, and then how do you translate that into the operations? How do you demonstrate that what you're doing and what services you're providing can become helpful to them? Because they're worrying about employee retention, workforce development, revenue, expenses. They're not worried about whether you changed the filters on the equipment last week. They're just expecting that to be the case. And so when you begin to realize that what you have to offer to senior management is huge, because you are a great asset to them. One tool that I always use with in my classes is Maslow's hierarchy. And you've seen the triangles, right?
Yes, yes.
And the bottom portion talks about safety, and it talks about job pay and stuff like that. So those are baseline things. And when you talk about safety and work environment, that's baseline what we bring to the table. And when we succeed above that by bringing the right services and right training, we can elevate our own team, but we also provide an environment where other people succeed, where they begin to have opportunities to collaborate, where they have opportunities to express themselves, to develop their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're there, they are at the top of their game. You know, they're critical to the organization, because they have something more to offer the organization than just coming to work 9 to 5 and doing and punching the clock, so to speak. So we provide that baseline, and by doing that and above that, we far exceed what just operating buildings. We far exceed what just looking at building operations. We're looking at building operations plus, because people come in there and work, they want to feel safe, they want to feel secure, and if they don't, nothing. Collaboration doesn't occur, self-esteem doesn't occur, training doesn't occur, because they're so focused on the lower end of that spectrum that they can't get to the next one. So by us recognize that and eliminating the risk and eliminate and putting the guardrail, so to speak, so that things continue to operate efficiently, people can exceed.
So all really good advice. And I'm going to bring this up because you said that leadership is really just common sense applied consistently. So define that. What do you mean by that?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
You've mentioned that common sense is our leadership is just really common sense applied consistently. So could you dig into that a bit more and speak
Sure.
to that?
If some of the basic things from a common sense standpoint. One, if something happens, it doesn't seem logical to you, it means it's time to look into it, right? If situations come up over and over and over again, it's time to take a common sense approach and ask the question, why?
Mm-hmm.
And why, and why, and why, to understand what people don't, well, there are some people, but most people don't want to complain just for the sake of complaining. But if they're complaining and it's repeated, then you need to take a common sense approach to say, there's something wrong with this picture. right? How
Mhm.
can I eliminate this situation? How can I better the situation? How can I remove the risk? How can I make their life better by doing something different than what I'm currently doing? So often we have so many things to do that we focus in on what we have been doing and assuming that that's the best way to do it, um, because it's easier that way. But if you stop to think, well, why, right? And so if you take also that, and then another part of common sense approach is to teach people with respect,
Mhm.
right? If you're respectful to the people you're working with, you can collaborate. You have opportunities to engage with them. Then they know they can trust you. When you have trust, then people start to bring ideas to you, whether they're facility management related or not. My old boss, I'd say, well, why am I getting all these questions about IT or security or this or that? He said, well, people go where they trust, where they vote with their feet,
Yes.
right? So they trust you, so they're going to come to you, and you build that trust, and comes from respect for them, for engagement with them, to understand where they're coming from, and they feel comfortable with you. So it's just a very common sense approach. It's nothing magical. It's nothing that you need to learn in a book. It's just how do you engage with people?
Right.
And that's what I think from a common sense standpoint. Let's not make it complicated. Let's not make it a sales pitch. Let make no presentations. I mean,
Just show up.
I'm a father of two and a grandfather of two. There's no book on that. But you take a common sense approach of how you're going to raise your children and help with the grandchildren, everything else will fall into place,
Yes.
right?
That's a good analogy,
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
No, it's true. Just showing up and always being there. And
Mhm.
sometimes, it's certainly relative to the occupants of the building, it may be in the background, but it creates something reliable because you were there and they know
Right.
you were there and they know that if something is changed or different,
Mhm.
you are the one they have to go and see because it's a trust
Right.
effort as well.
Right. I mean, so when you go through change management process with any organization, there are so many factors, and FM feeds into all those factors,
Yeah,
whether it's an HR factor, whether it's technology, whether it's a new building or a move, you name it, we're part of the package. It doesn't make a difference what arena that things are occurring. If there's a change process is going on in the organization, FM's got to be there, and we can provide the guidance, the support, and the tools to be able to be for the either whether ourselves, the organization, or other departments to be successful because we have the knowledge beyond just building operations if we want to consider ourselves business leaders. So one of the things that as I was growing my career in facility management, I would say I'm operating a business within a business.
mhm,
So by doing that, as I mentioned, I was a small business owner. So I understand P&Ls, I understand cost effectiveness, I understand how to be operationally effective. So if you're doing that and you're running your business as if you have skin in the game, if you put dollars into it, then you are much more valuable to senior management and the organization than coming in and looking at the work orders, right? Coming
right.
in and I'm not saying they don't need to be done. I'm not saying that they should be accomplished. But if you take a next step to say, okay, why is this piece of equipment always um, not operating correctly? Or what do we need to do to become more efficient? Or what training do our people need? Always looking for the next step, always looking to say, how can we improve? How we can provide continual improvement in our organization? Because as a business owner, you always want to improve, right? You
Mhm.
know what your sales were last year. You always want to prove to the next year that you're going to improve that. And you always have to look for opportunities for success. different ways and looking at not just within the organization, but outside the organization by going to conferences or talking to peers or just sometimes just looking and listening to the radio or the news or whatever, understanding what other people are doing in or out of your industry and see if that how that applies to how you can become more effective and become a better business partner as opposed to just someone running the FM department.
Well, that's such key information because you've just talked about change and changes that are common to this business of managing facilities. But it's
Mm-hmm.
also changes taking place with occupants and the business that they are in, and noting that's happening, and then collaborating on how facilities can keep supporting the changes that are undergoing in the organization
Mm-hmm.
or more than one within
Right.
the physical environment that you actually manage. So key information for sure. And actually a very key thinking approach, because facility managers don't wait for things to break down and then fix them. They are forward thinking, they're planning forward, they're actually uh, dealing with things before it becomes something
Mm-hmm.
that disrupts the business, right? So it's
Right.
very strategic.
Right. And we're very good from a technical standpoint of not making sure allowing our operations to falter. But when you're talking about people faltering or people or when you start talking about change for other in other groups um, or looking for when those situations are going to occur, when how it's going to affect the people, getting ahead of those is even a different skill set.
Right.
When you start to look at, okay, well, if we make this change or if the other group is making this change, how will it impact other groups, right? How will those changes occur? And that's something you learn over time. And um, now I'm not saying every senior leader is going to embrace you and say, thank God you arrived. Because you're
Nope.
the, that doesn't always happen, but at least you are showing your value to the organization, right?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of discussions going on now are about the businesses within facilities really changing
Mhm.
themselves. And the thought that comes to my mind at the moment is actually healthcare. And the amount of increasingly large amount of technology that they are using for healthcare, and a great deal of that has impact on the physical environment. So like,
Yeah.
just for instance, moving big equipment into a healthcare facility and how difficult that is, or
Mhm.
whether there were plans made to for that to happen. Right.
Right.
So it speaks to the value of having facility managers actually involved in the design of facilities
Right.
so that electrical outlets are placed at the right place, not in a typical building, because healthcare is not typical. So
Yeah.
it speaks to the value of facility management participating in not just looking after the building once it's done, but
Mhm.
actually informing how best to design and build it so that it can work better for the occupants as well as, properly
You're
maintained.
absolutely right. Right. I mean, because um, we need to think 5, 10 steps ahead to ensure when we're looking at those properties to say this will work or these are some of at least bring it to management attention to say, I know you like this building because it's at this particular corner in this particular town, but these will be the challenges.
Right?
And sometimes your advice is accepted, sometimes it's not. But at least you're providing the valuable input into it to say there's a challenge here, and it will cost you more to be here than not.
Well, you have just led right into the question that's top of mind, and that's really not
Mhm.
just speaking to the C-suite, but influencing them and what language to use and how to present it, right? So, and yeah, different businesses, different C-suites sometimes
Mhm.
influence the direction you take on that.
Right.
But I think that you've already referred to speaking the language of business, right? Speaking the language of cost, speaking the language of efficiency and so on, which, is different from maintaining the boiler. It's really about how, you know, how there needs to be a larger appreciation of the whole package for a business. So can you
Mhm.
give us some examples of that and how you've actually had that influence experience?
Well, early in my career, first of all, it could take years to be able to get that recognition that you're seeking. So early in my career, I started out with a law firm, and I talked myself onto the project. And they said, well, okay, well, you have this much ability, this much responsibility. I said, that's it. That's all you want me to do. And they said, yeah, here's our furniture budget. Stay within that. Here's, I don't remember the dollar amount offhand, but to make sure we don't spend anything more than that. Okay, that's it. Yes, we'll take care of all the rest. Well, so this was a restack and remodel project that I was responsible for. It was 7 floors in a high rise in Chicago. And so every 6 to 12 weeks, we were closing down one floor and moving people to temporary spaces. And it got to the point where we finally get to the finish line, and it's now time to move in to make the first move. Well, senior management were all attorneys, and they looked around and said, "We're not coming in over the weekend to do this. You have to do it." And I
Oh,
had no knowledge of that. I had never done it before. So after the first one went well, more trust, more collaboration, more experience, better operation, to the point where by the time we got to the sixth one, we had it humming. We didn't lose anything. We moved people faster. We got construction done completely faster. We understood the rules and regulations within the building, and we were able to operate at a much higher levels of speed. So that's where a successful change occurred. I'll give you a not so successful. Again, same company, and I'm charged with, I'm still early in my career, and it's working for a law firm. And back then, law firms used to have a lot of copiers, and they would spend a lot of money from that standpoint. And my boss came to me and said, we need to cut the budget. And I said, okay, well, and came back and said, here's one opportunity for us to downsize equipment on 7 different floors. And he loved the idea. He was a CPA. He loved the financials. He loved the fact that we were going to save money by putting smaller units, saving on the leasing product. Well, the one thing I didn't do is I didn't collaborate with the admins who are going to be impacted with because the equipment they're putting was slower and not as effective. Um, so we made the change without them. It occurred on a Friday afternoon. Most people gone. Come Monday morning, I had admins with pitchforks at my office because I didn't think about the impact of people.
right.
I didn't recognize that what I did, well, I served one party, but I didn't serve the other.
Yes.
And by not doing that, I actually had to reverse course and bring the old equipment back in, get rid of the smaller equipment and bring the bigger equipment back again, which actually costs more money in the long run. So while my boss, the CPA, he understood, he was not happy with the situation, but he had signed off on it. So he bared some responsibility for this and never and did. So that's where sometimes if you don't, sometimes getting something off your plate, off your checklist, is not the most efficient and effective way of doing it.
Well, actually, as you were talking about that, another thought came to my mind, and that's where facility managers really have more insight, and that's the
Mhm.
larger picture, the longer run, the life cycle, not just the initial first cost, but it's really, decisions made initially have impact throughout the life cycle. So it's important to actually frame financial information accordingly, right? Like through the life cycle, because firstly, over a longer time, that money changes, right? And
Right,
it gets to be an efficiency factor. So
right. One
speaking
of the
to,
class, I'm sorry, one of the classes, some of the classes through IFM we teach is one of the tools is called a balanced scorecard.
yes,
And you're familiar with that? Okay, so that's essentially what it is. It's looking at it from a standpoint of not only financial, but how the customer is going to be impacted. Do we have the people in place? Do we have the innovation? Do we have the processes in place? And I had not, I didn't know anything about that when I made the changes with the printers. But as I grew into my position, I learned I was doing the balance scorecard without the actual tool itself.
right.
So it becomes a mindset, a balance scorecard mindset
Yeah.
that by doing that, that's when you start to go beyond the day to day. You go into the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, looking further ahead.
Mhm. Boy, that's such a good way to frame it because, within organizations, you have departments who focus on one
Mhm.
thing. You have experts in those departments who focus on one thing. So it doesn't matter if it's HR, if it's finance, whatever it is.
Right.
But what facility managers do is they think balanced scorecard. Absolutely. How all of these things connect.
Mhm.
And doing deep dives, perfect. You go to some expert in the organization, but it's connecting the dots really around
Mhm.
how all of these things come together and impact each other. That's key.
Right. As I started the conversation before, I said managing risk. By looking at it from those four standpoints,
Yes.
you are essentially managing risk and it becomes your superpower if you take the time to spend the time to look at it from various angles. And if you don't get it, you may want to talk to someone else say, this is what I have. What
Right.
am I missing before you implement it? Right.
So, can you advise how facility managers actually uh, get invited or insert themselves into these conversations with the executive suite? Because influence is required. So, I mean, it changes organization to organization, I'm sure. But can
Mhm.
you advise facility managers on how to actually make that happen?
Every time I've been able to have that connection, it's because I've worked harder than my predecessor,
Okay.
where I demonstrated that there was something more to the table than just the technical. And sometimes it was just being a pain in the neck and just keep asking questions.
A positive pain in the neck.
That's right. That's right. I don't advise that one, but sometimes it's true demonstration of your services. Is he really the only way that you really have to be able to get into that? And you have to, and the other thing is, you have to look for the products to be exposed.
Mhm.
And you have to understand that you are exposed and you are taking a risk when you're doing it. And that's where sometimes some FMs don't want that risk and they would rather stay in their lane. They don't want that. So they'll stay with the task technical mindset because they're afraid that they're going to be exposed, that they may not have all the skill sets. Well, you learn that through going through training classes. You learn that through um, finding the good mentor in your organization or in and out to help you guide you. You ask a lot of questions along the way so that you feel comfortable enough to understand that there is risk and exposure to the organization and to yourself by making a change. And so it does take some internal fortitude to say, I'm ready. I'm ready to take that risk on. And so it's not just a matter of senior management recognizing you. You have to recognize it in yourself as to whether you have the skill set or not to do it. And if you want to, you then need to go out and find the skills. So, for example, I mentioned I've been teaching for 18 years. Well, that means that prior to that, I wasn't teaching. And there was a good reason for that. It was because I was afraid to talk in public.
Hmm.
And so and I realized that in order to be successful and be able to communicate with large groups, I needed that skill set. And when the opportunity came up to become an instructor for IFMA, I put my hand up. I was deathly afraid teaching. And every class I taught was, oh my God, they're gonna know I don't know everything. And then finally it got to the point after about 6 months of coaching and mentoring, people said, that's fine. You'll get to that point because you're asking the right questions. And that there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't have that information and working with the people in the room. So I knew I had the fortitude. I mentioned I was a business owner, so I'm a person who takes on more risk. Um, I was in sales, so I became comfortable talking one-on-one, but not large groups. So I recognized there were certain skills that I had, and there's a lot of people who take the classes who do have it. And once they get their certifications or credentialings, um, they start to feel more comfortable, more confident in what they can do. Because when you get your credentials or your certifications, you don't. Some people will come in and do it too because they want to be promoted. Well, that's a great goal to accomplish, but really you need to do it to help to understand you're bettering yourself because you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years. So with each class that you take, you become more confident and more comfortable in going after those other challenges.
You know what? As you're talking about that, it strikes me that's a message that needs to get out to everybody,
Mhm.
certainly. But in the FM world, it's a constant learning journey. Like it never ends because things
Mhm.
keep changing, right? And so taking that mindset of let's keep learning is really, really important because it
Mhm.
really does allow this engagement with larger organizations and even getting to know more about specific situations within just the physical environment as well. So
Right.
promoting this keep learning is really important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to you have to understand that there's some risks that are associated with it. Right.
Oh, yes, I think that frankly, risk is something that's inherent in this business. And again, I think that risk for various reasons is intensifying. And it means that we have to pay a lot of attention to that and how to sort of collaboratively work to minimize risk.
Right. Right.
So I am going to give you another question here. If every facility manager could make one change tomorrow, what would you advise that should be?
If they can make one change tomorrow, is that
Yeah,
what you said?
yeah. Or maybe it's not one, maybe it's more than one.
Um, they can make one change. I would say if they're going to make one change, it would, obviously going for your certification and credentialing. The other thing would be to take stock of what you do have to offer. Yeah, when you look at your resume, it just says what you've done.
Mhm.
It doesn't say what you can do, right?
Right.
Right? So you've had some success. So one thing you can do is to plus and minuses. What areas do I need more help on? What areas don't I have help on? And do I have someone who can help me get there? So really taking a look at and asking peers too to say, I'm looking at wanting to advance. What are some of the things that you recognize that maybe I need to focus in on? How can I better myself to be successful in these positions?
So constant feedback is then a really good way to get at that.
Right. And being honest with yourself as to where you are.
Right. Well, certainly continuous learning, I think, is inherent in facility management. Again, because different organizations need different working environments, which
Mhm.
then means different types of buildings and different aspects of those buildings. But the one common part through all of this is, and you mentioned that already, is the interaction that facility managers have and need to have with occupants, understanding their business to support it in the physical environment. So that in itself it is a continuous learning effort for
Mhm.
sure. But it's also building trust through interacting with the occupants, getting to know them very well, because I mean that's what facilities do, is support occupant work and
Right.
everything else that they do.
Right. And improve your active listening skills.
Ah, yes.
Another one, right? It's tough for many people, including myself.
No, it's
And
everyone's challenge.
was that
It's everyone's challenge for sure.
right? I always, when my sons changed jobs, I always encourage them to wait 90, 120 days before they start making suggestions. And sometimes I have to remind myself of the same skill set that's required. And I jokingly say when I'm in meetings in the beginning, I literally hold my lips with my fingers to shut myself up because I know I'm going to want to speak and I need to a reminder to myself, it's time to be quiet and time to listen to the situation. So,
Just listen and take notes, right?
right, right. Mhm.
No, it's true though that listening is such an important part of learning, and
Mhm.
it establishes a certain trust factor, because you can't go into any situation making big statements about everything that you know. You really do have to listen and
Mhm.
appreciate viewpoints from other people. And strangely enough, you learn a lot too when you do that.
Yeah.
So that's a very useful piece of advice for sure.
Right. Right.
So I have another question here. Um, what do you think are the most underrated leadership skills in FM for sure, but I think probably more generally?
Most underrated skills from
Underrated.
a facility management standpoint? Um,
Is it observation?
Observation. It's also um, realizing that you actually do have something to offer,
Okay.
that you're not just the person who's um, serving food or operating the equipment or cleaning the floors, that you actually have more talent than that. Um,
Well, back to facility management being a generalist
Right,
activity, right? There's a lot of skill sets involved in the entire practice. So,
right, right. If you look at just the 11 competencies associated with being a successful FM, you don't, no one has all 11, but you have majority of them,
yes,
and respect that you do have those. Um, so I would say find which ones you do have strengths and share them, right? And um, don't be shy. You know, it's kind of ironic. I'm an introvert, but that's what I'm, and I get my energy from just being part of myself. But I have the ability to speak. I have the ability to share,
right.
and I don't share now. I mean, I did before. I don't share a bit too direct. I share more now to mentor and to assist. I want to see people succeed. Um, there were so many opportunities that I had that I didn't have somebody to guide me, and that's where I'm trying to add that. So it's looking for that person or assistance that you need to be able to shine in those areas that you already have strengths in.
Right. Oh, that's such good advice because I mean, there's a whole spectrum of characters within facility management. That's a good
Mhm.
thing. It's really important because it does touch on, experiences in the broader landscape and allows people to identify with that for sure. So,
Mhm.
reaching that self-awareness, number one, and then using that awareness to actually accelerate at what you do. Because there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. It's probably deep thinking going on that other people
Mhm.
don't take the time for. So, that's not a bad experience to share with others too.
Right. Right, because it's a business concept, business mindset versus a cost mindset,
Yes.
right? So we're taught as FMs, we're the cost center, we're the ugly people who spend money on things that may not always seem to be necessary. But if you have a business mindset, those costs become investments, and that's a different way of looking at it. And so that's something that's learned. It's not, it could, because the rest of the industry has told us that we're a cost center, and our bosses have told us that for years, for decades actually. And now to change it to be a business mindset is much more effective.
You know what? I like the framing of that because it is an investment. And you can never underrate investments unless something fails. But the whole idea
Mhm.
of investing is so that it doesn't fail. So that is absolutely a very positive approach to organizations for, not only educating about why this is important, but the importance of recognizing it, right? Which is what FM does. So
Right.
great advice. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Any last thing that you want to offer up to the crowd? I mean, it's a huge field. There's lots going on, but if you had, as you were being afforded right now, an opportunity to list one thing that's really critical going forward, what would that advice be?
Um, I would say again, I'm going to go back to take stock of
Okay.
what you can do. Understand that you have something to offer. Understand that there's going to be some risk. Understand how much risk you're willing to take. If you're not willing to take it, that's fine. If you're willing to take it, take a little bit, take a little bit, and take a little bit. Eventually, those risks don't become as painful
Mhm.
or as scary because you're taking a little bit of risk and you're eating away at it.
Mhm.
So believe in yourself.
That's a great idea.
And if you need somebody, find a mentor, find somebody who can help you, find a class, do what you can through. There's a lot of opportunities through IFMA to get the training that you need and hire me as a trainer.
That's such a good idea. I was just going to say that this whole industry, well, actually, and I think right across the globe, there's a demographic shift. I mean, it just happens day by day, year by year.
Yeah,
And this is a huge opportunity to actually mentor, to desire to mentor and to invite folks to, hey, if you want to know, ask me because I've been there, done that, and so on. And that's critically important.
right,
So
right.
we're going to post this as mentor available.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Right.
Oh, that's great. So thank you very much. I mean, you
Thank you.
continue to add such great experience and depth to understanding facility management and how best to sort of move forward and learn some more in this business that will lead not only to individual success but to organizational success too, which is it's key.
Mhm. Right. Even though I have all the competencies, I'm still learning.
Yes,
And every time I
continuous
teach a
learning.
class, I'm learning. I, I people when I go to World Workplace, I know I'm going to walk away with a new vendor and a new idea, at
Yes,
least one. That's my
great.
goal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
continuous learning. I love it.
that's right. Right.
Great. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Thanks,
This has
Kathleen.
been informative once again, but also a good conversation, and I always enjoy those.
You make it very easy to talk to.
Well,
I
you
got
have
a
lots to
compliment. I mean,
say.
well, the first time I was going to do this, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna screw this up. But you make it so easy to just have a conversation with you. So thank you.
My enjoyment. So take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.